A beginning in a quiet German town. 1814. Henry Nestle, the man whose name would one day appear on millions of packages around the world, began his journey far from the global influence he would eventually gain. He was born on August 10, 1814, in a small German town called Frankfurt am Main, during a time when Europe was recovering from war, economic instability, and widespread poverty. His birth name was Heinrich Nestle, a name that held no special meaning at the time, yet would one day symbolize nourishment, innovation, and survival for generations of families. Henry was the 12th child in a large, struggling household. Many of his siblings did not survive childhood. Infant mortality was devastatingly common. Food was scarce, medical knowledge was limited, and families often lived in fear that their newborn children might not make it past their first year. This harsh reality shaped the emotional world Henry was born into, a world where hope and grief walked side by side. His father, Carl Nestle, worked as a carpenter. He was honest, hardworking, and exhausted most days. His mother, Anna Maria Markert, was the backbone of the family, raising the children, managing the household, and fighting every day to provide enough food, warmth, and comfort. Their home was simple, their income small, and their responsibilities overwhelming. But the Nestle household was built with discipline, resilience, and the belief that hard work could overcome hardship. Growing up in such an environment would later become one of the silent engines behind Henry's life's mission, feeding those who could not feed themselves. A child who observed the world deeply. Henry Nestle was not a loud or overly playful child. Instead, he was quiet, observant, and thoughtful. Even at the age of 6 or 7, he showed unusual curiosity about how things worked, especially anything related to food, medicine, or natural ingredients. When he walked through the small markets of Frankfurt, he watched everything with an intensity most adults would overlook. How bakers mixed dough, how blacksmiths shaped metal, how herbalists prepared remedies, how milk spoiled quickly in warm weather, how doctors struggled to save malnourished infants. He saw mothers desperately trying to feed their weak children. He saw families crushed by the loss of babies who could not survive because they lacked proper nourishment. One particular memory stayed with him for life. A young mother holding a crying infant who could not digest ordinary food. The doctor had no solution, the mother had no hope, and the child had almost no chance of survival. This memory planted a seed inside Henry, a painful awareness of the connection between nourishment and survival. Though he was just a boy, he began to understand something that would later drive his greatest invention. Some babies die simply because they cannot get the right food. He did not yet know how to solve the problem, but the idea stayed inside him, waiting for the future. Education and early discipline, 1820 to 1830. When Henry went to school, his teachers immediately noticed his sharp mind. He wasn't the strongest student in terms of physical work, but academically, he was excellent. He enjoyed reading, writing, and learning about the natural world. The subjects that shaped him most were chemistry, biology, herbal medicine, basic food science, and mathematics. Henry was fascinated by how things changed when mixed together, heated, cooled, or processed. He kept small notebooks where he wrote observations like, "Why does milk spoil so fast? How can food last longer? What are the nutritional needs of a weak child? Which plants help digestion?" These questions were not for school assignments. They were for himself. They were signs of a mind already moving toward innovation. But his life was not easy. By his teenage years, the Nestle family's financial situation had become even more difficult. To support his parents, Henry worked after school at various shops, assisting a pharmacist, delivering wooden materials for carpenters, arranging herbs and ingredients, handling basic equipment, observing how medicines were prepared. Working in a pharmacy changed his life. It introduced him to chemical processes, food preservation techniques, different forms of nutrition, and the medical challenges of infants and mothers. He saw sick children, weak infants, iron-deficient mothers, and families desperate for solutions. And each observation silently carved the future direction of his career. A Europe filled with hardship and fear. During the early 19th century, Europe was full of crises, war aftermath, famine, disease, and the lack of medical understanding. Infant death was tragically normal. Many mothers could not produce enough breast milk. Wet nurses were expensive. Milk alternatives were unsafe or indigestible. Every year, thousands of babies died simply because no safe infant food existed. These tragedies left a deep emotional impact on Henry. Without realizing it, his life's mission had already begun. The life-changing decision: leaving Germany. In 1834, when Henry was 20 years old, he made a bold and life-defining decision. He left Germany. He had no wealth, no big opportunity waiting for him, and no guarantee of success. But he had one thing: an intense desire to study chemistry and build a meaningful life. Switzerland was becoming an industrial and scientific center. It had new laboratories, new industries, and new opportunities for ambitious young minds. So Henry packed a small bag, carried his notebooks, and traveled alone to a new country. He didn't know the language, he didn't know the culture, and he had no family there. But he believed that one day he would build something important, something that would touch lives. This single decision created the foundation of what would later become Nestlé, the world's largest food and nutrition empire.